Hi everybody, welcome along to another episode of the Dispatches podcast. My name is Brendan Malone. It is great to be back with you again. And today I'm going to be doing something a little bit new, and it's going to be hopefully a regular recurring feature. I thought there's a whole lot of reactivity out there in the world. There's a whole lot of negativity. There's a whole lot of pointing at problems in the world, and we can all do that, and that's pretty easy. But what I think we really lack often is wisdom. And I don't just mean platitudes or one-off one-liners and, things that you read on the back of, I was going to say the back of a milk carton, but you don't really read wisdom on the back of a milk carton, do you? Apart from the expiry date. Get that wrong and you'll be in trouble. What I actually meant was the sort of things you read on a cat poster, a motivational cat poster. I'm not talking about that kind of superficial stuff. I'm talking about the deep magic, the deep wisdom from good sources. And so starting from today, what I thought we'd do is we just have these regular little podcast episodes where I open up a book, a great work of some kind or other. It's a bit of a lotto. I've got a massive bookshelf and a whole ton of books, and there's lots we can draw on, but things that I think are not so much just inspirational as they are worthy of our deeper consideration and just sort of immersing ourselves in intellectually, philosophically, emotionally, spiritually, like diving into a deep warm bath, basically. Just jumping in head first and allowing yourself to be immersed and to contemplate this great wisdom from these different sources. And today, I thought I would actually start by diving into Saint Augustine's Confessions. And I've chosen I've got a couple of different versions of this, but the modern English version, like it's a reader version. So if you're not sure where to start, that could be a good version for you to jump in. It's designed more to be read. And there's a particular passage that I actually want to read today. And, the reason I've chosen, or what I'm aiming to do here with these is choose great writings that have a great depth of wisdom and will really allow us to be immersed in goodness, truth and beauty. And I think it's a really essential antidote to the times that we find ourselves living in. Everything is very reactive, particularly thanks to social media. Everything tends to be very reactionary, reacting to something, but there's very little in the way of trying to help and nurture a genuine contemplative life within people that is actually building, fostering and safeguarding things that are deep and profound, things that are good, true and beautiful. And that's what these little episodes of the Dispatches are all about. So as you can see, I've got a different backdrop. I've just set my phone up and plonked myself in the corner of my office, and I've got my book table in front of me with a swag of books on it. Chuck on the glasses, make myself look a bit more intelligent, and we will read from Saint Augustine's Confessions. And what I want to read actually in particular is the passage about the death of his mother Monica, because I think contemplating our own death is important, obviously. Memento mori, you are dust and unto dust you shall return. It's also something we don't do a lot of in today's culture, and often not just the fear of death, but that sort of very superficial approach to it that we don't want to think about it because it's uncomfortable, and it also raises existential questions of faith, of belief. Where am I going? What do I really believe? What have I lived my life for, etc. And this is what we see in Saint Augustine here, is this beautiful reflection actually from a son whose mother is also a saint, actually Saint Monica, who prayed many years for his conversion and is very pivotal in his conversion, a great Christian woman in her own right. But it's the son who is now a Christian, and there's this sort of beautiful sort of final will and testament, if you like, or a final tribute that he is writing here to his mother. So that's all contained in this, but it's a beautiful reflection, I think, on a good death, what a good death looks like, and therefore is worthy of our consideration. As the day of her departure from this life approached, a day you well knew, though we did not. And obviously he's talking to God here when he says, you well knew, but we did not. It came to pass that she and I stood alone, leaning in a certain window that looked into the garden of the house where we resided at Ostia. I believe you ordered this time in your secret ways, where we were removed from the din of men, We were resting after a long voyage. We talked together alone, very sweetly, forgetting these things of the past and reaching toward those things which were before. And that's a reference to St. Paul's letter to Philippians. We were inquiring between ourselves in the presence of the truth that you are, what sort of eternal life the saints were to have. Such things eye has not seen, nor ear heard, nor has the full answer entered into the heart. But yet we gasped with the mouth of our heart after those heavenly streams of your fountain, the fountain of life which is with you. We wanted to be enlightened as much as we could comprehend, so that we might better meditate upon so high a mystery. And when our conversation reached that point, the very highest delight of the earthly senses and the very purest material light, it was not worth comparing to the sweetness of that life. We saw that this life is not worthy even of mention. We raised up ourselves with a more glowing affection towards the creation realities. By degrees we passed over all material being, to the very heavens, where the sun, moon and stars shine upon the earth. We soared higher yet in our inward musings, and considered and admired all of your works. We came to the wonder of our own minds, and went beyond them, that we might arrive at that region of never-failing plenty. There you feed Israel forever with the food of truth. There life is that wisdom by whom all these things are made, the have-been and the shall-be things. There is the wisdom that is not made, but is, as she has been, and shall ever be. States of have been and hereafter will be are not in her. This wisdom just is, for she is eternal. Have been and will hereafter be are not eternal. And while we were considering eternal wisdom and panting after her, we slightly touched on wisdom with the whole effort of our heart. And by the way, there's no doubt there that he is obviously drawing allusions to the Old Testament book, the Book of Wisdom. And if you haven't, go and read it. If you have, you will be familiar with the fact that this is exactly how the writer of the Book of Wisdom speaks about wisdom and describes her in this beautiful poetic kind of way. The wonder brought a sigh, and there we left bound the first fruits of the Spirit, and returned to consider the vocal expressions of our mouth, for the word spoken has both a beginning and an end. And what is like unto your word, our Lord, who endures in himself without becoming old, and who makes all things new? We were saying then, if to any the tumult of the flesh were hushed, hushed the images of earth and waters and air, hushed the poles of heaven, hushed the very soul, hushed all dreams and imaginary revelations, hushed every tongue and sign, and whatsoever exists only in transition. In that silence, if any could hear, all of these would say, we made not ourselves, but he made us, that abides forever. Having said this, they too should be silent, having opened our ears to him who made them. Then he alone would speak, not by them, but by himself, that we may hear his word. His voice would not be spoken through any tongue of flesh, nor angel's voice, nor sound of thunder, nor the dark riddle of a similitude. Rather, we might hear the one whom in these things we love, might hear his very self without these, as we too now strained ourselves and in swift thought touched on that eternal wisdom which abides over all. Could this one sight be continued, and all other lesser and unlike visions cease, and this one ravish and absorb and wrap up its beholder amid these inward joys, life might be forever like that one moment of understanding which now we sighed after. Isn't this the final meaning of come and share your Master's happiness? And when shall that be? When shall we rise again, though we shall not all be changed? I said such things, if not in this exact manner and wording. Lord, you know that as we spoke that day of these things, the delights of the world became contemptible to us. My mother said, Son, for my part, I have no further delight in anything in this life. What I am to do, and why I am here any longer, I do not know. My hopes in this world are accomplished. There was one thing that I longed to see while I lived, and that was for you to be a Catholic Christian. My God has been more than generous in giving this to me, for I have seen you despise earthly happiness to become his servant. So now, what am I doing here? I don't remember the answer I gave. It was not much more than 5 days later that she fell sick of a fever. After being sick one day, she fell unconscious and for a while withdrew from all visible things. We hastened around her, but she regained consciousness, looked at my brother and me as we stood by, and inquired, "Where was I?" And then looking fixedly on us in our surprised grief, she added, "Here you will bury your mother." I held my peace and refrained from weeping, but my brother said something about his wish that it would be better if she died in her homeland rather than this strange place. Her anxious look of reproach stopped him, for it bothered her that he considered such things important. "Hear what he says," she said to me. Soon she spoke to us both. "Lay this body anywhere. Do not be in any way concerned about it. I ask only that you remember me at the Lord's altar, wherever you are." After saying this, as well as she could, she fell silent, worn out, as she became more ill. Considering the gifts, unseen God, that you instill in the hearts of your faithful ones, from which wondrous fruits do spring, I rejoiced and gave thanks. I remembered that at one time she had been most anxious in caring for her place of burial, which she had prepared for herself by the body of her husband. Since they had lived in great harmony together, she also wished to have this addition to that happiness. So little can the human mind embrace eternal things that she wanted it remembered among men, that after her pilgrimage beyond the seas, what was earthly of this united pair was united beneath the same earth. I did not know that her heart had begun to let go of this emptiness through the fullness of your goodness. I rejoiced to delight in what she had made known to me. Certainly, as we talked by the window, she had expressed no particular desire to die in her own country, as she asked, "What am I still doing here?" I heard afterwards that when we were at Ostia, she had spoken to some of my friends with a mother's confidence about her contempt for this life and the blessing of death. They expressed surprise at such courage as you had given to a woman, and asked whether she feared to leave her body so far from her own city. She replied, "Nothing is far to God. Should I fear that at the end of the world he will not know where to raise me up?" What a beautiful reply, eh? On the 9th day of her sickness, in the 56th year of her life, and the 33rd year of mine, that righteous and holy soul was freed from the body. Despite everything, when I closed her eyes, I felt a mighty sorrow. It overflowed in emotion. My eyes answered the violent command of my emotions to fill with enough water to drink a fountain completely dry. I was tormented by conflicts. When she breathed her last, the boy, Adeodatus, burst into loud lament. Then he was stopped by us all and remained silent. I felt the same childish feeling well up in my heart. My heart's youthful cry wanted an outlet in crying, but I stopped myself and remained silent. We did not think it appropriate to conduct this funeral with tearful lament and groaning. This is the usual custom for expressing grief for the departed, as though unhappy that the person is altogether dead. This person was neither unhappy in death nor altogether dead. Of this we were assured for good reason, including the testimony of her own words and her sincere faith. What was it that caused such disturbing pain? I had sustained a fresh wound as I was suddenly wrenched from our most sweet and enjoyable manner of living together. I did not feel joy in her testimony when, in her last sickness, she made endearing comments about my actions and called me dutiful. She said with great affection that she had never heard me say a harsh or reproachful word against her, But yet, O God, who made us, what comparison is there between that honour I paid to her and her slavery on my behalf? Having lost such a great comfort as she was to me, my soul was wounded, life was torn apart, since her life and mine together had been made one. When the weeping of Adeodatus had been quieted, Euodius took up the psalter and began to sing the psalm, I will sing of mercy and judgment to you, O Lord. Our whole house joined in. But hearing what we were doing, many brothers and religious women came together, while the ones whose job it was prepared the body for the burial. In another part of the house, I joined those who did not want to leave me alone and talked about something that seemed appropriate. The healing medicine of truth soothed the torment that was known only to you. They thought me to be without sorrow, but in your ears, where none of them heard, I blamed the weakness of my feelings and restrained my flood of grief, which gave way a little, then returned as a rising tide. It was not so overwhelming that I burst into tears or let grief show on my face. I alone knew what I was keeping down in my heart. I was very displeased to see the power that these human emotions had over me. Death must come in the due order and appointment of our natural condition. And by the way, that's almost certainly a reflection of his earlier Stoic years. He's sort of drawing on that Stoicism again when he says things like that. With a new grief I grieved, so that I was worn out by a double sorrow. The corpse was carried to its burial. We went out and returned without tears. I still did not weep, not even in those prayers we poured forth into you when the sacrifice of our ransom was offered for her, nor when the corpse was by the grave's side in the custom of this place before it was laid to rest. Yet I secretly remained intensely sad the whole day. I prayed as I could, with troubled mind, that you would heal my sorrow. You did not. I think you were impressing upon my memory that the bond of all habit is strong, even in a soul that does not believe deceptive ideas. It seemed good to me to go and bathe, for I had heard that the bath took its name, the balneum, which is just a generic Latin phrase for a public or a private bath, from the Latin term for something that drives sadness from the mind. And apparently linguists are not sure about whether he's correct in that description or not, so they don't have much to sort of back that up, but that seems to be, I guess, popular thought at the time. And this I confess unto your mercy, Father of the fatherless, that I bathed and remained the same. The bitterness of sorrow could not exude out of my heart. I slept, and when I awakened my grief was softened a lot. As I lay alone with my thoughts in bed, I remembered those true verses of Ambrose. For you are maker of all, the Lord and ruler of the height, who robing day in light have poured soft slumbers into the night, that to our limbs the power of toil may be renewed, and hearts be raised that sink and cower, and sorrows be subdued. Little by little I recovered my former thoughts of your handmaid, her holy praise of you, her holy tenderness and observance toward us. Of this I was suddenly deprived, and I was minded to weep in your sight for her and for myself, in her behalf and in my own. And I allowed the tears that I had restrained to overflow as much as they desired. I rested my heart upon them, and it found rest. For it was before your eyes, not in front of men who would have scornfully interpreted my weeping. And now, Lord, in writing I confess it to you. Read it, any who will, and interpret it as you wish. If anyone finds sin in the tears I wept for my mother for a small portion of an hour, let him not berate me. This mother, who now was dead to mine eyes, had for many years wept for me, that I might live before your face. If anyone feel great love for me, let him weep for all my sins against you, the Father of all the brethren of your Christ. But now, with a heart cured of that wound that might seem to be blameworthy earthly feeling, I poured out to you a far different kind of tears on behalf of your handmaid. They flowed from a spirit shaken by the thoughts of the dangers of every soul that dies in Adam, although she had been quickened in Christ before her release from the flesh, and she had lived to the praise of your name for her faith and confession. From the time you regenerated her by baptism, no word issued from her mouth against your commandments. Your Son, the truth, said, anyone who says, you fool, will be in danger of the fire of hell. And woe to one who lives a commendable life if they don't exercise mercy. You examine our lives, but because you are merciful in inquiring after sins, we confidently hope to find a place with you. But whosoever counts his real merits to you can count nothing but the gifts you have given to him. Oh, that men would know who they are as men, and that he that glories would glory in the Lord. Laying aside her good deeds, for which I give thanks with joy, I now beseech you about the sins of mother, O my praise and my life, God of my heart. Listen, I entreat you, by the medicine of the one who hung with our wounds upon the tree. He now sits at your right hand and makes intercession to you for us. I know that she dealt mercifully, and from her heart forgave her debtors their debts. Do you also forgive her debts, whatever she may have contracted in so many years after the water of salvation? Forgive her, Lord, forgive, I beseech you. Enter not into judgment with her. Let your mercy be exalted above your justice. Your words are true, and you have promised mercy unto the merciful, which you give us grace to be. You will have mercy on whom you will have mercy, and you will feel compassion on whom you have compassion. And I believe you have already done what I ask, but accept, O Lord, the offerings of my mouth, given of a free will. For when the day of her dissolution was at hand, she took no thought of having her body sumptuously wound up or embalmed with spices. She wanted no costly monument, nor did she care that she would not be buried in her own land. She asked us for none of these things. She only asked that her name might be commemorated at your altar, which she had served without a break of one day. She knew that holy sacrifice that would be dispensed, by which the handwriting that was against us is blotted out. She had triumphed over the enemy, who, summing up our offences and seeking what to lay to our charge, found nothing. It was all in him in whom we conquer. Who shall restore to him his innocent blood? Who will repay him what he paid when he bought us and to take us from him? Unto the sacrament of our ransom, your handmaid bound her soul by the bond of faith. Let none sever her from your protection. Let neither the lion nor the dragon interpose himself by force or fraud. For she will not answer that she owes nothing, lest she be convicted and seized by the crafty accuser. Rather, she will answer that her sins are forgiven her by him to whom none can repay what he, who owed nothing, paid for us. May she rest then in peace, with the husband before and after whom she had no man. Him she obeyed with patience, bringing forth fruit to you, that she might win him also unto you. Inspire, O Lord, your servants, my brethren. They are your sons and my masters, whom with voice and heart and pen I serve. May so many as shall read these confessions at your altar remember Monica, your handmaid, with Patricius her husband, by whose bodies you brought me into this life. May they with devout affection remember my parents in this transitory light, my brethren under you, our Father and our Catholic Mother. They are my fellow citizens in that eternal Jerusalem which your pilgrim people sighs after from their exodus, even unto their return. I wish that my mother's last request of me be fulfilled through my confessions more than through my prayers, that the prayers of many might be more abundantly fulfilled to her. What a beautiful reflection, and what a beautiful final testament to be given by your Son, who has come to the Christian faith after many, many years of motherly prayers. And isn't that a common story in the life of many a young person? The prayers and the importance of their mother. And it seemed particularly appropriate, not just in the age that we're living in to reflect on this, but also as over the next couple of days we commemorate the feasts of All Saints and All Souls, and we remember our holy dead. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget, live by goodness, truth and beauty, not by lies. And I'll see you next time on The Dispatches.